Well, howdy gang, Jeff from G's Gear knocking out a video for a guitar that we're about to add to the store at reverb.com. And what a store we have, and what a guitar we have. This is something of a mystery. It's a mystery that we largely feel we've unraveled. This is a really, really cool guitar. We're going to get into it in a couple of different ways. We'll talk about the guitar itself. We'll play the guitar so you can hear it in a couple of different ways. But let's try to figure out just what this thing is. I will tell you that this is a, don't let the trapeze tailpiece fool you. Don't let the floating bridge fool you. This is a flat top guitar. Flat top guitar with an arched back, and it dates from the 1930s, from the Great Depression. And that's one of the first clues as to what this guitar is and who made it. During the Great Depression, the major guitar companies in America were really struggling to stay alive. And to do so, they had to reinvent how they conducted business. Among those companies, you'd have Gibson and Harmony and Kay and Martin, and a handful of other smaller companies back in the late 20s and the 30s. Some of the companies, would eventually fold and go under, but some of them would figure out ways to survive in the Depression. And we believe this is a Gibson Made guitar. And so the story of Gibson during the Depression is that at that time, the way you marketed your instruments was you sold them through mom and pop music shops, you sold them through department stores, or you sold them through the big catalog retailers like Sears, Spiegel, and Montgomery Ward's. Gibson sold most of their guitars through mom and pop music shops. And in order to create those contracts, they were contractually obligated to the mom and pop store to not undercut them by selling the guitars for less somewhere else. So if they were selling a guitar for $100 to a local music store, who was going to turn it around and sell it for $125, they couldn't sell the same guitar to a department store for $75, who would turn around and sell it for $100, and they would put the mom and pop out of business. But during the Depression, most everybody had a lot less money. Gibson guitars were always expensive for the time period, and they had to figure out a way to make guitars and sell guitars at a lower price point without breaking the contracts that they had with mom and pop stores all across the country. The way they did it was they started to create a lot of off-brand guitar lines which were sold under different names to, or through I should say, department stores and catalog retailers. Believe it or not, while many of you have heard of things like Kalamazoo guitars and Recording King guitars, and maybe Cromwell guitars, they were rather well-known guitars made by Gibson. Gibson actually manufactured guitars under about 30 different brands, and sometimes those brands were specific to a particular department store chain, and it was their way of getting a guitar that no one else could compare guitars to, even though it was the same guitar as being sold down the block somewhere else. When Gibson made these, they streamlined production on guitars. So their flat top guitars in these budget brand lines were made with ladder bracing rather than X bracing. The ornamentation on the guitar was very much simplified, and the headstocks were generally changed so that they would not immediately pop out to you as a Gibson open book or snakehead style of headstock. So when we got this guitar in and we started to look at it and try to figure out who made it, we wound up looking at 4 different elements of the guitar that make it rather distinctive. One of them is the width of the lower bout. That's always important. One is the very distinctive trim molding that goes around the sound holes, unlike anything else we had seen. One is the profile of the neck, and the other is the headstock shape itself. In searching the internet for a long period of time, going backwards in time, looking at photographs from listings that other people have had and in articles and whatnot, I've only ever seen one other guitar that looked rather like this. It was a K model of guitar that had the same basic appearance as this. But none of those 4 things added up. The K guitar had a 15 7/8 inch wide lower bout. This is 15 5/8 inch. The K guitar had a plain ornamentation here at the sound hole and a C profile neck. This is a V profile neck. And the headstock was a standard K headstock, pediment headstock that was seen on their guitars throughout the run of K guitars. This one's a little smaller. Like I say, it's 15 5/8 inches. It's the size of a Gibson Dreadnought, although the waist here is narrower than a Gibson Dreadnought. The binding at the sound hole is what's referred to as a zipper binding, that black and white checker kind of a look. It was only available on Gibson guitars for 1 year, and that was 1932. The V profile neck is very much a Gibson style of neck, and the headstock is rather distinct. And this headstock is one that we've been able to see on guitars on some of the Kalamazoo line, on the Recording King line, on the Cromwell guitars, and on Capitol guitars, all made by Gibson. Not only does it have the kind of a paddle style headstock that rises to a point, but what's significant about it is that the shoulders of it are very much rounded. A regal headstock from the time period would look something like this, but with more pointed shoulders. And the headstock actually expands outward. It's sort of chamfered out at the back here. And that's unique really to those Recording King and Kalamazoo headstocks. So regardless of who they were making the guitar for and how it was intended to be branded, like in any company, you have to gear up to do it. You've got to rev up your production line to make them. And so you would tend to use a common sort of a headstock to make a number of different brand names. And so we believe strongly that this is a Gibson made guitar from 1932. We're listing it as a Recording King because the Recording Kings most often had this headstock. But I don't know that it was ever marketed as a Recording King. It has no name on it. It has no serial numbers. This could be, in a guitar sense, what with saxophones we would refer to as a stencil. An instrument that was made to go to be wholesaled to a retailer who in turn would put their own name on it, and that way it would become a house brand of instrument. That's still done to this day, and there are guitar companies out there making guitars for other companies. So that's the kind of the long and short of the history of it. What else can we tell you about it? It's a spruce top. It is, I believe, birch back and sides, kind of a faux tiger striping in here. It has, again, that V profile neck that is just so comfortable in the hands. And tuners have been changed on it. The action is very quick. It's 2.5 30 seconds at the 12th fret of the low E, 1/16 at the 12th fret of the high E. Now, before I forget, I will tell you that it does fret out at about the 14th fret of the D, A, and E strings. We had the action up a little higher at a 3/30 seconds, and it did not fret out. There is a little bit of relief in the neck, really minor, but there's no truss rod. When Gibson, they had a patented truss rod system, but when they made these guitars, they left the truss rods out of them. So in order to get the action comfortable across the meat of the guitar, we opted to bring it down a little bit here, and it plays like a dream. If you need that guitar to play up here, you can raise the action at the bridge, and you'll be back in business. Other than that, it needed very little work. The tuners, as I say, are replacements. They're in great shape. We cleaned and lubricated them. We leveled and crowned the frets. The guitar had a really well set neck, did not need to be redone. However, when the guitar came in, 2 of the braces that were on the back of the guitar were loose and flopping around inside the body. They've probably been loose for a long time, because over time the arch of the back has flattened a little bit. So we had to sand the braces to get them to conform to what's there and glue them back in. The brace that's observable in the sound hole went like clockwork. There's another brace that's back further in the guitar, back around here actually, and it was just really hard to get to. The glue work is sloppier than we would have liked. You can't really see it unless you go looking for it, but it's solid, it's holding, and it's keeping the guitar in place. There's a Brazilian rosewood fretboard, Brazilian rosewood bridge, of course the chrome tailpiece here, and this guitar sounds unlike any acoustic guitar I've played. It's loud. When you're watching the video, levels get corrected a little bit so you don't get a really distorted clipping kind of a sound. But I can tell you, sitting behind it, this thing pumps out the volume. It's unbelievably bright and loud. And the sound is different from what you would get out of, say, a Gibson Hummingbird or a Gibson J100 or any of the classic kind of flat tops with the pinned bridges. It has more of an arch top guitar kind of a sound that's very barky, that just has a big honk to it. And I love it. I'm getting, at first I was put off a little bit by it, I'll tell you that. But the more I play it, the more I love how articulated the sound is. I think this thing would sound great with a glass slide. We have Diodario nickel bronze strings on it, and they might be a little bit over bright for the way this is producing sound. You might try this guitar either with silk and steels or with Martin Retro with the Monel core. That would be a string made a little bit more like strings were made in that time period. So you can experiment with that. But it's gorgeous. This thing is just beautiful to behold. You have to look at the high detail pictures that we have on the reverb.com site. And there are no cracks, there are no splits, there are no open seams. There are a lot of little nicks and dings. There's places where little bits of the finish are gone. It's 95 years old or thereabouts, 93 years old. So it's going to get some of that. But the neck is great. There's no divoting in the fretboard. The frets are wonderful. It's a great little guitar. So let's play something for you here with a flat pick. Give you a sense to hear. See if I can hold on to a flat pick today. Let's see. We'll try this. Big sound. This thing not only reverberates, at times I think this thing positively echoes. I don't know if you'll ever hear this on the video here. If you can catch the reverberation of that inside the body. Big sound. Plays like a big old arch top. Has a fullness of sound, a loud quality of sound, much louder than you typically get out of an arch top. This thing will drive an acoustic band. There's no way around that. Mic'd, it'll sound really great in a recording. Like I say, I think with a slide, this is going to be amazing. So it's a G's Gear at Reverb.com. And you can see it there. For how long? I don't know. This is a curious piece, a mystery guitar. But we're fairly confident this is a Gibson guitar, Gibson Made guitar from the early 1930s. Probably sold originally through a regional department store chain. If it was something bigger like Spiegel's or Montgomery Ward, it would probably be badged that way. But it's just really cool. I've never seen anything like it, and I'm loath to part with it. But it's got to go. We got too much stuff at the house, cluttering things up. All right, gang. At Reverb.com, G's Gear. I will also say, and I'm trying to get in the habit of saying it, we do restoration work and repair work on guitars, and you can find out information about that at www.gees, Gees -gear, gear.com. And you'll see this guitar listed there, but we do our sales through Reverb. All right. We'll play something to take us out. We'll catch you on the flip side. Let's see what we're going to do here. Oh, I don't know if I can do this today. That's wrong key.